Captain Tang Deho stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Harmony, watching as Veltho Prime grew larger against the backdrop of space. The planet was breathtaking, its surface covered in massive structures that glowed with soft golden light. Thousands of ships orbited the world, each one representing a different species from across the galaxy. After decades of reaching for the stars, humanity had finally been invited to join the great community of civilized worlds. "It's beautiful," Dr. Park Minji said, stepping up beside him. She clutched her data tablet against her chest, her eyes wide with wonder. 847 species, Deho. Can you imagine? All working together. Deho nodded, though something in his gut told him to stay cautious. He had spent 20 years in the Space Force, and he had learned that things that looked too perfect usually were. Still, he kept his concerns to himself. This was humanity's chance to prove itself worthy of joining the Galactic Assembly. Lieutenant Choi Hyunwoo approached from the rear of the observation deck, his military uniform crisp and perfect. "Captain, we'll be docking in 40 minutes. Ambassador Lee wants to review the presentation one more time. Tell her I'll be there in 5 minutes," Deho replied. The docking process was smooth and efficient. Automated systems guided the Harmony into a massive bay that could have held 50 ships their size. As they disembarked, Deho got his first look at the aliens who ran the assembly. The station staff were tall, elegant beings with bluish skin and 4 arms. They moved with practiced efficiency, barely acknowledging the human delegation as they processed their credentials. Ambassador Li Jiwan led the group through the station's corridors. She was a veteran diplomat, someone who had negotiated peace treaties on Earth and trade agreements with the first alien contacts humanity had made. If anyone could get Earth into the assembly, it was her. The corridors were wide enough for 10 humans to walk side by side, designed to accommodate species of all shapes and sizes. Deho saw creatures that defied description, beings made of crystalline structures that sang as they moved, floating entities surrounded by clouds of luminous gas, massive insectoid creatures that clicked and chittered in complex patterns. It was everything humanity had dreamed of when they first looked up at the stars, but as they walked, Deho began to notice patterns. The corridors were divided by subtle markings on the floor. The larger, more impressive aliens walked in the center lanes, while smaller species kept to the sides. Several times he saw smaller aliens trying to approach the larger ones, only to be politely but firmly redirected by station staff. "Munji," he said quietly, falling back to walk beside the scientist. "Are you seeing this?" She frowned, following his gaze. A small, furry creature with large eyes was being guided away from a group of towering reptilian beings. The separation? Maybe it's just traffic management? Maybe, Deho said, but he didn't believe it. Their assigned quarters were comfortable but modest. Located in a section of the station labeled Provisional Members and Applicants. Over the next 3 days, they attended orientation sessions and information briefings. The assembly, they learned, had existed for over 12,000 years. It maintained peace through complex networks of treaties and trade agreements. Members contributed resources and military forces to a collective defense fleet. In exchange, they received protection and access to advanced technology. It all sounded wonderful in the presentations. But between the official sessions, Deho started talking to other species in the applicant section. That was when the cracks began to show. He met Tikshara, a representative of the Cliff, an insectoid species whose chitinous exoskeleton shimmered with green and gold patterns. She had been coming to the assembly for 30 years, filing petitions for help. Her people's colony worlds were being raided by pirates who stripped entire planets of resources and left nothing behind. Every year, "I submit the reports," Tikshara clicked, her translator rendering her words into English. "Every year they say they will investigate. Nothing changes. The raiders come and we have no ships to fight them. We asked for defense platforms. They said we must file Form 7743B and wait for approval. That was 28 years ago." Deho felt anger rising in his chest. They've done nothing? In 30 years? Oh, they have done something, Tikshara's antennae drooped. They sent me a letter 3 years ago. It said my petition had been received and would be reviewed. The review will be complete in another 40 years. He met others too. The Veshans, aquatic beings whose ocean worlds were being poisoned by illegal dumping. The Vorum, peaceful traders whose ships were being captured and their people sold as slaves. Every species in the applicant section had the same story. They came asking for help. They filed their forms. They waited. Nothing happened. The day of Earth's presentation arrived. Ambassador Lee had prepared for months. She had data on human achievements, cultural contributions, and military capabilities. She had rehearsed her speech until every word was perfect. They entered the presentation chamber, and Deho's heart sank. The room could hold thousands, but only a handful of beings sat in the vast space. Most were other minor species, applicants like themselves. The seats reserved for the major powers of the assembly were either empty or occupied by small holographic projections that flickered with disinterest. Lee delivered her speech anyway. She spoke about humanity's journey to the stars, about the wars they had ended on Earth and the peace they had built. She talked about human creativity, determination, and the desire to contribute to galactic civilization. She explained how Earth's industrial capacity and scientific innovation could benefit the assembly. Minji watched the holograms of the major power representatives. They didn't move, didn't react. They were set to observation mode only, recording the speech but not truly present. When Lee finished, there was polite applause from the few minor species representatives who were physically present. An assembly official, one of the elegant blue-skinned beings, approached with a data tablet. "Thank you for your presentation," the official said in a bored tone. "Your application has been received and will be processed according to standard procedures. You can expect a preliminary review in 40 to 60 standard cycles." 40 to 60 cycles? Hyunwoo said. "How long is that in Earth years?" "Approximately 75 to 110 of your years," the official replied without emotion. "You will be notified of any changes in status." "Good day." The official walked away, leaving the human delegation standing alone in the empty chamber. That evening, Deho found himself in one of the station's observation lounges. He stared out at the stars, feeling the weight of disappointment. Minji found him there. "We traveled across the galaxy to speak to an empty room," she said quietly. "Not empty," Deho replied. Tikshara was there. "And those Deshan delegates?" "And the Vorum." They listened. They cared. "Because they're just like us?" Minji said. "Too small to matter to the ones in power." Deho turned away from the viewport, his jaw set. "Then maybe we're talking to the wrong people." The next day brought a formal response from the assembly. A courier delivered a physical document to Ambassador Lee, printed on what looked like golden paper. Hyunwoo watched as she read it, her expression growing darker with each line. "What does it say?" he asked. Lee looked up, her eyes tired. "It thanks us for our interest in joining the assembly. It confirms that our application has been received and logged in the official registry. Processing time is estimated at 75 to 110 Earth years, pending availability of review board members and completion of background assessments." "Background assessments?" Minji said. "We gave them everything about Earth, our history, our technology, our culture. What more do they need?" "This," Lee held up another section of the document. "An application processing fee? 200,000 credits worth of refined titanium iridium alloy. To be delivered within 6 months or the application will be suspended." Deho felt his hands curl into fists. "How much is that worth?" "Enough to build a small fleet of defense platforms," Hyunwoo said quietly. "I checked the conversion rates. That much alloy could protect an entire star system." Lee set the document down carefully as if it might explode. "They want us to pay for the privilege of waiting a century for them to maybe consider our application." That afternoon, Deho went looking for answers. He found Tikshara in a small cafe that catered to minor species. The Cliff was sitting alone, her antennae drooping with exhaustion. "May I join you?" Deho asked. Tikshara gestured to the seat across from her. "Of course, Captain." "I heard about your application results." "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Deho sat down. I'm starting to think we got off easy. At least we only wasted a few weeks. You've been doing this for 30 years. 32 now, Tikshara clicked softly. But who counts anymore? They talked for hours. Tikshara told him about the Clith colony worlds, beautiful planets with crystalline forests and vast underground cities. She described how the raiders came every few years, stripping away the crystals that were sacred to her people, leaving behind toxic waste that poisoned the soil. We asked the assembly for help, she said. They told us to file incident reports. We filed thousands. They told us to request a military investigation. We requested one every year. They told us to petition for defensive aid. We have been petitioning for 3 decades. And nothing happened, Deho said. Oh, something happened. Tikshara's mandibles clicked in what might have been bitter laughter. The raiders started selling our sacred crystals through assembly-approved trade channels. Perfectly legal. Perfectly documented. When we complained, we were told that the crystals were obtained through legitimate salvage operations. Deho felt sick. The assembly knows about the raids? The assembly doesn't know anything it doesn't want to know, a new voice said. A reptilian creature with dark green scales approached their table. Mind if I join you? Captain Kang Deho, Earth Delegation, Deho said. Vorath, former representative of the Grex Confederacy, the reptilian said, settling into a chair that adjusted to accommodate his size. Former, because I finally accepted reality. The assembly doesn't care about species like us. You gave up? Minji had arrived, sliding into the seat next to Deho. I got smart, Vorath said. I've been watching the assembly for 40 years. You want to know how it really works? For the next hour, Vorath explained the truth behind the assembly's elegant facade. The major powers, the species with vast fleets and resource-rich empires, used the assembly as a tool to maintain control. They created endless bureaucratic procedures that kept minor species trapped in paperwork while their worlds were exploited. The application fees, the processing delays, the review boards that never seemed to meet, it was all designed to extract resources while giving nothing in return. But why? Minji asked. Why create this system? Why not just ignore us entirely? Because this way you can't say they didn't help, Vorath said. They gave you the forms. They accepted your petitions. They followed proper procedures. When your worlds are stripped bare and your people are desperate, they can say it's not their fault. You just didn't file the right forms or wait long enough for the process to complete. That evening, the assembly hosted a gala for the major powers. The human delegation wasn't invited, but Hyunwoo had connections. A security officer from a mid-tier species owed him a favor and got them into the building through a service entrance. They stood in a side hallway, watching through glass walls as the galaxy's elite celebrated. The beings in that room represented species that controlled hundreds of worlds each. They drank exotic beverages and discussed trade agreements worth trillions of credits. Deho watched a group of them laugh about something. Their entire demeanor relaxed and confident. In the room next door. Separated by just a wall, minor species representatives sat in cramped chairs, filling out petition forms and waiting for their numbers to be called. An automated system dispensed forms and collected them, filing everything away in databases that might never be reviewed. Look at this, Minji whispered. She had pulled up information on her tablet. The application fee Earth has to pay? That same amount of resources could have bought defense platforms for 6 different species who are currently being raided. It gets worse, Hyunwoo said, his jaw tight. I did some checking. Those raiders attacking the Clith worlds? 3 of them are registered corporations owned by subsidiaries of companies based on major assembly worlds. The stolen resources get laundered through legal trade channels. Deho felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't just bureaucratic apathy. This was organized exploitation dressed up as civilized government. They were about to leave when one of the major power representatives stumbled out of the gala. He was a Hegron, a massive being with thick armor plates and multiple eyes. He was clearly drunk on whatever the Hegron drank. "Ah, the humans," the Hegron said, his translator slurring the words. "How did you enjoy your big presentation today?" "It was educational," Deho said carefully. The Hegron laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Educational? That's good. Let me educate you further, little human. You actually thought we cared? You thought the assembly was about cooperation and mutual benefit?" "That's what your promotional materials say," Minji said. "Promotional materials," the Hegron laughed harder. "The assembly exists, so we don't have to care. You small species, you come here with your problems and your petitions, and we give you forms. We give you procedures. We give you hope. And while you're busy filing paperwork and waiting for reviews, we do whatever we want. It's perfect. You can't accuse us of ignoring you because we gave you a process. And the process never ends." The Hegron leaned closer, his breath reeking of fermented chemicals. "Go home, little humans. File your forms. Send your petitions. Pay your fees. Wait your turn like everyone else. And in 100 years, maybe someone will look at your application. Or maybe not. Doesn't really matter, does it?" He wandered away, still laughing. The three humans stood in silence for a long moment. "We came all this way," Minji said softly. "Humanity dreamed of this for centuries. Joining the galactic community. Taking our place among the stars. This isn't a community," Yunwu said. "It's a protection racket." Deho looked back through the glass wall at the gala, then at the room full of desperate minor species representatives filling out forms that would never be read. "We're going home," he said. "But not to file forms or pay fees. What are we going to do?" Minji asked. Deho's expression was hard. "We're going to show the galaxy what happens when humans actually give a damn." The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Deho spent most of that time in his quarters, writing and rewriting his report. How did you tell humanity that its dreams were built on lies? How did you explain that the great galactic civilization was really just a sophisticated system of exploitation? Ambassador Lee worked on the official diplomatic report, but her heart wasn't in it. Minji compiled data on every species they had met, documenting their struggles and the assembly's systematic neglect. Hyunwoo analyzed the military situation, mapping out which species were vulnerable and which major powers were profiting from their suffering. When they finally arrived at Earth, the United Earth Council was waiting. The council chamber in Geneva was filled with representatives from every nation on Earth. President Han Xiao sat at the center of the curved table. Her expression neutral as Lee began her presentation, Lee didn't soften the truth. She showed them the empty chamber where she had given her speech. She played recordings of the board assembly officials. She read the application response with its century-long waiting period and its expensive processing fee. Then Minji took over. She told them about Tikshara and the Cliff, about 30 years of ignored petitions while their worlds were stripped of resources. She described the Theshans whose oceans were being poisoned, the Vorum whose people were being enslaved. She showed them the statistics, 73 species currently filing petitions for help, with an average waiting time of 46 years before their cases were even reviewed. "And this is what they want us to join," Minji said quietly. "A system that perfected the art of looking busy while doing nothing." Hyunwoo presented the military analysis. He showed how the major powers maintained their dominance through bureaucracy rather than direct force. He revealed the connections between assembly-sanctioned corporations and the raiders attacking minor species. He demonstrated how the system was designed to keep small species weak while extracting their resources. "The assembly isn't a government," Hyunwoo concluded. "It's a mechanism for organized apathy." The council chamber erupted in debate. Some argued that Earth should stay isolated, avoiding the assembly entirely. Others insisted that working within the system was the only way to change it. A few suggested that humanity should focus on its own development and ignore galactic politics. President Han let them argue for an hour before she raised her hand for silence. 3 months ago, she said, we were excited to receive the Assembly's invitation. We thought it meant humanity had finally proven itself worthy of joining galactic civilization. Now we know the truth. The question is, what do we do about it? We can't fix the assembly, one counselor said. It's been running for 12,000 years. What can one species do? We can refuse to participate in it, another replied. And abandon all those species asking for help? Minji said. Tikshara has been fighting for her people for 30 years. The Veshans have been poisoned. The Vorum are being enslaved. If we walk away, we're no better than the assembly. Deho stood up. The assembly won't help them because helping doesn't profit the major powers. But maybe profit isn't the point. Maybe the point is doing what's right. You're talking about intervention, a counselor said. Military intervention in galactic affairs. Do you know what that could lead to? I know what not doing it leads to, Deho replied. I saw it. Dozens of species drowning in paperwork while their worlds burn. The debate continued for 3 days. The council heard testimony from experts, strategists, and philosophers. They analyzed Earth's capabilities and resources. They considered the risks of action versus the cost of inaction. On the third day, President Han called for a vote. The result was close but clear. Earth would not join the Galactic Assembly. Instead, it would forge a new path. President Han addressed the world that evening. Today, the United Earth Council made a decision that will shape humanity's future among the stars. We were invited to join the Galactic Assembly, an organization that claims to represent civilized space. We declined. The news caused shockwaves across Earth, but Han continued. We declined because the Assembly is not what it pretends to be. It is a system designed to maintain the power of the strong while exploiting the weak. It is bureaucracy weaponized against hope. We will not be part of it. She paused, letting her words sink in. Instead, Earth will establish the Terran Compact. This will be a true alliance based on mutual defense and genuine cooperation. We invite any species that shares these values to join us. We offer protection to those who need it, partnership to those who seek it, and action instead of paperwork. The announcement sent shockwaves through both Earth and the galaxy. Within hours, Tikshara sent a message from the assembly station. Does Earth really mean this? Deho replied personally, we mean it. If you want our help, you have it. Earth mobilized with a speed that surprised even its own people. The Space Force expanded rapidly with new shipyards opening on the Moon and Mars. Scientists worked around the clock, combining human innovation with information gathered from the frustrated researchers of minor species who had been ignored by the assembly for decades. Dr. Yun Tai-jin, one of Earth's leading physicists, led a team that developed new defensive technologies. They created shield systems that were more efficient than assembly standard designs. They built weapons that were cheaper to produce but just as effective. They designed ships that could be manufactured quickly without sacrificing quality. The assembly technology is impressive, Taijin explained to a reporter. But it's also deliberately complex. They keep minor species dependent on buying expensive systems from major powers. We're designing things that any species can build and maintain themselves. Within 6 months, Earth had built a fleet of 30 defense ships. They weren't the biggest or the most powerful in the galaxy, but they were solid, reliable, and ready to actually do something. Deho was promoted to admiral, and given command of the compact fleet, his first mission was personal. He took 5 ships and traveled to the Cliff Colony worlds. Tikshara met him at the orbital station above her homeworld. She looked different than she had at the assembly, her posture more confident, her antennae raised high. You came, she said. And Deho could hear the emotion in her voice even through the translator. I told you we would, Deho replied. Where do you need us? The Cliff provided coordinates for 3 worlds that were regularly raided. Deho split his fleet, stationing ships at each location. He also brought engineering teams who helped the Cliff set up defensive platforms using the new designs from Earth. This is everything we asked the assembly for, Tikshara said as she watched a platform come online. For 30 years we begged. You're here for 6 days and we have real defenses. The assembly wanted you to file forms and wait, Deho said. We believe in showing up. Word spread quickly. The Thessians reached out, asking if Earth could help with the poisoning of their oceans. A human environmental team arrived within a month, bringing technology to clean the water and identify the sources of contamination. When they traced the pollution to an illegal dumping operation run by an assembly-sanctioned corporation, Haianwu's ships chased down the dump vessels and arrested their crews. The Vorum asked for help, protecting their trade routes from slavers. Earth ships began escorting Vorum convoys, and when slavers tried to attack, they found themselves facing human vessels that actually fought back instead of filing incident reports. More species reached out. Some were cautious, asking what Earth wanted in return. The answer was always the same: join the compact. Stand with us. Help each other. By the end of the first year, 23 species had signed the Terran Compact. They came from all corners of the galaxy, species that had been ignored, exploited, or abandoned by the Assembly's bureaucracy. They came because Earth had proven that it would actually do what it promised, the Assembly noticed. How could they not? Their carefully maintained system was beginning to crack. The first real test came 8 months after the Terran Compact was established. A Thessian water freighter carrying medical supplies to a colony world sent out a distress call. Raiders were attacking, trying to steal the ship and its cargo. Captain Choi Hyunwoo was closest with his patrol squadron of 3 Earth ships. All vessels maximum speed to the Thessian freighter. Battle stations. The raiders had expected an easy target. The Thessians were peaceful, their ships designed for cargo rather than combat. What the raiders didn't expect was 3 human warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel with weapons hot. "This is Captain Choi of the Terran Compact Fleet," Hyunwoo broadcast on all frequencies. "You are attacking a compact vessel. Break off immediately or face the consequences." The raiders tried to run. Haianwu's ships pursued. It wasn't a long chase. Within an hour, all 3 raider vessels were disabled and boarded. The pirates were secured and their stolen cargo recovered, but Hyunwoo didn't stop there. He traced the raiders' registration back to their home port and discovered they were operating from a station in assembly space. He contacted the local assembly authorities and turned the pirates over for prosecution, along with complete evidence of their crimes. The assembly authorities seemed annoyed by the extra work. "We'll process them according to standard procedures," an official told Hyunwoo. "Good," Hyunwoo replied, "because if they're back raiding in 6 months, I'll be back too. And next time, I'll be asking why your procedures don't work." The encounter was broadcast across the galactic communication networks. Minor species watched as human ships didn't just respond to a distress call but actually pursued the attackers. They saw pirates arrested and evidence gathered. They saw someone finally doing something. More species reached out to the compact. Within weeks, membership grew from 23 to 47 species. The assembly responded with a formal complaint. Ambassador Lee received it in her office on Earth. She read it aloud to Daho and President Han, who were visiting via video link. The Galactic Assembly wishes to express concern regarding the activities of the so-called Terran Compact. Recent military actions in assembly space represent a disruption of established economic patterns and jurisdictional protocols. Earth is advised to cease these activities and submit to proper regulatory oversight. "Disruption of established economic patterns," Daho repeated. "They mean we're interfering with their piracy operations." "They're not calling them pirates," Lee noted. "They're calling them economic patterns." President Han smiled coldly. "Send them our response. Tell them we're not disrupting anything. We're defending people who asked for help and received forms instead." The response went out publicly. Not through diplomatic channels, but broadcast on the same networks that had shown Haianwu's pursuit of the raiders. The message was simple: the Terran Compact exists because the Assembly failed. We will continue to help those who need it. The galactic public reaction was immediate. Minor species began organizing protests at Assembly facilities. They demanded to know why Earth, a species that had been in space for less than 200 years, could respond to emergencies faster than an organization that had existed for 12,000 years. The Assembly's major powers met in emergency session. The Hegron Empire was particularly vocal. Their representative, the same one who had drunkenly mocked the humans at the gala, now stood before the Assembly Council demanding action. "The humans are costing us billions in lost revenue," he declared. "Their interference with legitimate salvage operations has disrupted supply chains. Their protection of minor species has created instability in profitable sectors." Other major powers agreed. The compact was bad for business. It needed to be stopped, but some Assembly members disagreed. A mid-tier species called the Raltec spoke up. "Perhaps the question is not why the humans are acting, but why we are not. These minor species have been petitioning us for help for decades. We ignored them. Earth listened. Maybe we should examine our own procedures." The argument split the Assembly. Conservative factions wanted to crush the compact before it grew stronger. Reform factions saw an opportunity to change the system. The debate raged for weeks. Meanwhile, the compact continued to grow. 67 species had joined by the 6th month of the 2nd year. Minji established something called the Compact Academy on Earth, bringing together scientists and engineers from member species to share knowledge freely. No patents. No licensing fees, no proprietary technology, Minji explained at the opening ceremony. "If you invent something that can help others, share it. If you need help solving a problem, ask. We're stronger together than we are alone." The Academy became a hub of innovation. Theshan water purification technology combined with human industrial processes to create systems that could clean entire oceans. Clith crystal growing techniques merged with earth materials science to produce new kinds of computer processors. Vorum navigation systems enhanced human ship designs. The Assembly had kept species separated, forcing them to buy technology from major powers. The compact brought them together, letting them help each other. It was working. The compact was becoming a real force in the galaxy. And that scared the Assembly's hardliners. The Hegron Empire made the first move. Their fleets began positioning near compact territory, conducting exercises that looked suspiciously like invasion preparations. 2 other major powers, the Korath Dominion and the Velfrin Union, joined them. Intelligence reports landed on Deho's desk. 3 major power fleets, totaling over 300 warships, were preparing for coordinated strikes against Earth and several key compact worlds. "They're going to try to crush us," Yunwu said at the emergency command meeting. "Hit us hard and fast before we get any stronger." "Can we fight them?" President Han asked. Deho studied the tactical displays. The compact had grown to 200 member species, but most were small and lacked significant military forces. Earth's fleet had expanded to 100 ships, but that was still outnumbered 3-1 by just the forces gathering for this attack. In a straight fight, we'd lose, Deho admitted. But this isn't going to be a straight fight. We have something they don't. What's that? Han asked. We actually work together. Deho sent out the call. Every compact member species was asked to contribute whatever they could. Ships, supplies, intelligence, anything that might help. The response was overwhelming. Species that had been ignored by the Assembly for decades suddenly had a reason to fight. They sent everything they had. Small patrol vessels, converted civilian ships, even outdated military hardware that had been mothballed for years. It wasn't much individually, but together it added up. More importantly, they shared information. The Compact's intelligence network was built on trust rather than bureaucracy. When a Vorum trader spotted Hegron fleet movements, they reported it immediately. When Clith scientists detected unusual energy signatures near their worlds, they shared the data. When Theshan diplomats heard rumors at assembly stations, they passed them along. The attack came 3 weeks later. Hegron, Korath, and Velfin fleets jumped into the Sol system simultaneously. Expecting to catch Earth's defenses unprepared, instead, they found Admiral Kong Deho waiting for them with the entire Compact fleet. Hegron fleet, this is Admiral Deho of the Terran Compact. You have entered our space with hostile intent. Turn back now, or we will defend ourselves. The Hegron commander's response was predictable. You are outnumbered 3-1, human. Surrender and we will show mercy. Deho looked at the tactical display, showing not just Earth ships but vessels from 200 different species, all flying the compact flag. We don't need mercy, Deho replied. We have something better. We have each other. The Battle of Seoul began. The Hegron commander expected a quick victory. His fleet was larger, his ships were built by one of the galaxy's oldest military powers, and his warriors had been fighting for centuries. What he saw on his tactical display seemed to confirm his expectations. A mixed fleet of mismatched vessels from dozens of minor species. Led by humans who had barely been in space for 200 years, what he didn't understand was that the Compact had been preparing for this moment since its founding, Admiral Deho's flagship. The Soul held position at the center of the Compact formation. Around him, ships from 200 species took up positions that had been practiced and refined for months. The Clith, with their fast scout vessels, formed a screen at the outer edges. The Veshans, whose ships had powerful sensors designed for navigating their ocean worlds, provided early warning and targeting data. The Vorum, experienced traders who knew every trick for avoiding danger, coordinated electronic warfare and jamming Dot and the humans. The humans tied it all together, their command and control systems linking the entire fleet into a unified whole. Hegron fleet is advancing, Yunwu reported from his battle station. Korath and Velthran wings are moving to flank positions. Let them come, Deho said calmly. All ships execute pattern Kinchi. The compact fleet began to move. The Hegron commander watched, confused, as the formation seemed to dissolve into chaos. Ships scattered in what looked like panic, breaking formation and fleeing in different directions. He smiled. They were running, just as he had expected. He ordered his fleet to pursue, to break into hunter groups and chase down the fleeing vessels. That was his first mistake. As soon as the Hegron fleet broke formation, the compact ships stopped running. The Clith scouts, faster than anything the Hegron had, circled back and began hitting isolated Hegron vessels from behind. The Veshan sensor ships fed targeting data to human and Vorum gunships, allowing them to strike with perfect accuracy. Ships that had seemed to be fleeing in panic suddenly converged on individual Hegron vessels, overwhelming them with coordinated fire. The Hegron commander realized too late that he had been tricked. He tried to reform his fleet, but the compact forces kept them divided. Using speed and coordination to offset the enemy's numerical advantage, Korath Wing is breaking off, Hyunwoo reported. They're taking heavy losses from the Clith and human combined forces. Don't let them regroup, Deho ordered. Press the attack. The battle raged for 6 hours. It wasn't the glorious confrontation the Hegron had expected. Instead, it was a grinding fight where the compact's superior coordination slowly wore down the attackers. Every time an assembly fleet tried to mass its forces, compact ships would hit them from an unexpected angle. Every time they tried to chase down what looked like an easy target, they found themselves surrounded by enemies who worked together perfectly. The turning point came when a Hegron battleship tried to break through to Earth itself. Captain Choi Hyun-woo's squadron intercepted it, along with ships from 6 other compact species. The Clith blinded its sensors with electronic warfare. The Veshans fed targeting data to the human and Vorum gunships. A species called the Renthic, who specialized in shield technology, coordinated their defensive systems to protect the smaller ships from the battleship's massive weapons. Together, they brought down a ship that individually, none of them could have defeated. The Hegron commander watched his battleship explode and made his decision. He ordered a retreat. The Korath and Velthran fleets followed suit, their formations broken and their casualties mounting. They had expected an easy victory over disorganized minor species. Instead, they had faced a unified force that fought with precision and purpose. As the enemy fleets fled, cheering erupted across the compact communication channels. Ships from 200 species celebrated together, not as separate nations but as one alliance. Deho allowed himself a small smile. All ships, stand down from battle stations. Begin rescue operations for damaged vessels, including enemy survivors. Admiral? Yunwoo questioned. We're not like them, Deho said. We don't leave people to die in space even if they attacked us. Rescue everyone? Treat everyone? Then send them home with a message. The compact defends itself, but we don't seek war. We just want to help those who need it. The Battle of Seoul changed everything. The Galactic Networks broadcast footage of the fight, showing how the compact had defeated 3 major power fleets through cooperation rather than brute force. Minor species across the galaxy watched and realized that they didn't have to accept the Assembly's neglect anymore. Within days, protests erupted at assembly facilities across the galaxy. Minor species demanded to know why they paid tribute to an organization that couldn't protect them while the compact, barely 2 years old, had successfully defended Earth against a coordinated attack. The Assembly's member species began to split. Hardliners wanted to launch a full-scale war against the compact to crush it before it grew any stronger. Reform factions argued that the compact's success proved the Assembly system was broken and needed to be fixed. Elections were called on several major worlds. On 3 of them, reform candidates won, promising to restructure the Assembly to actually serve all its members rather than just the powerful ones. The compact continued to grow. Membership reached 200 species, then 300. Some species maintained dual membership in both the Assembly and the compact. Trying to bridge the gap between the old system and the new Minji's Compact Academy became one of the most important institutions in the galaxy. Scientists from hundreds of species worked together, solving problems that the Assembly's compartmentalized research programs had struggled with for centuries. Medical advances, agricultural improvements, and environmental restoration techniques spread rapidly through compact space. The Assembly kept everyone separated, Minji explained in an interview. They made minor species dependent on buying solutions from major powers. We're letting everyone share what they know. It turns out that when you actually let people help each other, amazing things happen. 2 years after the Battle of Seoul, the Assembly finally fractured. The Reform faction split off, joined by 67 major and minor species who wanted to create a new kind of galactic organization. They reached out to the compact, proposing a merger. The negotiations took months. The reformed Assembly members had resources and technology. The compact had trust and momentum. Together, they created something new, the new Assembly, built on the compact's principles but with the scale and reach of the old organization. Not everyone joined. The Hegron Empire and several other hardline powers refused to participate, maintaining the old Assembly structure for those who wanted to keep the status quo. But they were now a minority, and their influence was fading. 3 years after Earth had walked away from the Assembly's empty promises, Admiral Kang Daeho stood in the Grand Convocation Chamber on Velfora Prime, the same chamber where Ambassador Lee had given her speech to an almost empty room. Now it was full. Representatives from over 400 species filled the seats, and this time they were all really there. No holographic proxies, no observation, only recordings. Real beings, present and engaged. President Han had asked Daeho to speak on Earth's behalf at the new Assembly's founding ceremony. He stood at the podium, looking out at the gathered species, and kept his message simple. 3 years ago, humanity came to this chamber asking to join what we thought was a great civilization. We discovered instead that it was a great machine, designed to keep the powerful comfortable while the weak suffered. We were told to file forms, pay fees, and wait our turn. We were told that change was impossible, that the system was too big and too old to be reformed. He paused, letting his words sink in. We didn't believe that. Not because humans are special or superior, but because we refused to accept that apathy was inevitable. We believe that when someone asks for help, the only acceptable response is, we're on our way. We believe that civilization means everyone matters, not just the powerful. Daeho gestured to the full chamber. Look around. 3 years ago, most of you would have been speaking to empty seats. Your petitions would have been filed away. Your emergencies would have generated paperwork, and your suffering would have been processed according to standard procedures. Today, you're here because we chose to do something different. We chose action over bureaucracy. We chose cooperation over exploitation. We chose to help each other. He leaned forward, his voice carrying across the chamber. The assembly taught us what not to be. It showed us that power without purpose, technology without compassion, and organization without care creates nothing but suffering dressed up as civilization. Now, together, we're showing the galaxy what we can become when we actually give a damn. The chamber erupted in approval. Representatives from hundreds of species stood, not because they were required to, but because they wanted to. They had lived through the old system's failures. They had experienced what happened when people chose to act instead of filing forms. They had hope again. Deho stepped down from the podium as the applause continued. Minji was waiting for him, tears in her eyes. "We did it," she said. "We actually changed things." "Not us," Deho replied, looking at the celebrating representatives. "All of us. That was the point all along.